What's going on? My name is Alan. I'm the founder of MediaJet Marketing. And for the last 7 years, I've been building funnels for e commerce brands. Starting with one, I think the elephant in the room is CPG brands have low margin on the front end. So, what that means is when you factor in cost of goods sold, shipping, ad spend, and the agency, you don't have much to play with from an acquisition standpoint. When we kind of like consult or work with a larger style e-commerce brand like a kayak or something that's maybe $500 or $1,000, this is not an issue because they have the room to play with in order to be able to pay for that acquisition, right? CPG brands don't. You have very low margins, and we need to get creative, right? So I'm going to talk about the few nuances, which is before the advertising that you can think about when kind of thinking about your ad strategy. So one, you have to have multi-pack bundles. So all right. So what that means is on a product page, you're not going to have, only the one-time purchase option, right? So let's say, for example, one of our clients is a tallow chip. We're not selling one. We're selling 3, 6, and we're selling 9. In some cases, maybe even more. Maybe 12 makes sense, right? So we can do the multi-pack buy boxes, to increase average order value. And that increased average order value actually increases our return on ad spend. So what does this lead to? It leads to a higher average order value. So maybe instead of having a $10 item, maybe you have a 3, 6, and a 9 pack, and now you have a 30, a 60, and a $90 option. Okay, what does that do? What that affects is that, your acquisition cost on the channel, let's say your CPA. So first of all, I'm gonna put some numbers that you should aim for. You should aim for a click-through rate of 1.5%, of 1 to 1.5%. One to 1.5% on the ad account. You should aim for a $30, I would say anywhere from a $25 to a $30 CPM. CPM is cost per 1,000 impressions on Meta. So if it's higher than that, you have an audience alignment issue, or you're in a super competitive niche in which, for example, a prenatal company that we worked with had a little bit higher of CPMs, and we have to deal with it, right? So that makes advertising more expensive. But this in mind will lead you, to an acquisition cost, CPA. Let's aim, I would say in CPG, you're probably going to be aiming for anywhere from $20 to $60. And I know that's a big range, but this CPA will then, it will lead you to CPA, and then your average order value will then equate to your return on ad spend, ROAS, right? Now, if your CPA is, let's say on the low end 20, and your average order value is this middle option, which is the 6-pack at 60, you have a 3 ROAS, because for $20, you acquired 60 in new business, right? Let's say, let's go to the higher end of that CPA. If it's 60 and you acquired an average order value of 60 as well, because most people are going for the middle pack, then you have a 1 ROAS. So I like to aim for, on new customer acquisition, we like to aim for anywhere from a 1.5, I would say, to a 3, through a 3 plus. I would say that's the ROAS range. And I'm actually going to change this to first time purchase ROAS, first FTP ROAS versus just ROAS, right? Okay, so I'm going to then wrap up this part of the discussion, because the average order value will then dictate what your first time purchase ROAS is. Why is this important? Because you need to address this before even getting to the advertising portion of the conversation. So the issue is we have a low margin on the front end. The solution is we put multi-pack bundles. Multi-pack bundles leads to a higher average order value, considering a click-through rate of 1 to 1.5% on the ad account and a $25 to $30 CPM. I forgot one thing, so that's conversion rate. We should aim for a conversion rate, CVR, of, I would say, 1 to 4%. These are big ranges because it totally depends on your offer and the performance of this funnel, essentially, right? But I see funnels in 1% conversion rate and also some in 4% conversion rate, based, kind of depends on the average order value as well, making this work. So these are the ranges that will then indirectly connect to your average order value and your CPA to then spit out a first time customer ROAS, right? 1.5 to a 3 ROAS. Now, here are some notable things. So that's step one. Let's see if I can go ahead and divide this. And now we have the second part of the equation. So you want to track 90-day LTV, 90-day lifetime value, and 120-day lifetime value. What this means is how much revenue did we extract per customer in 90 or 120 days. The reason this matters is because we have a consumable product, right? So we're going to go ahead and then calculate what's our 90 and what's our 120 day LTV ROAS, right? So 90-day LTV ROAS. So if it was, I'm going to give a little bit of a hypothetical situation, but if it was a 2 ROAS, a 2 first time purchase ROAS, and we extracted, maybe let's say we extracted $120 in revenue in 90 days, and that could be our 90-day LTV. We now, let's say our CPA was, $30 on the front end with a $60 AOV. Our 90-day LTV ROAS is actually a 30 to 120 ratio. So let's go ahead and put it right here. And this is all hypothetical, but it'll get you thinking. So that would be 30, 60, 90, 100. We'd actually have a 4 ROAS on a 90-day window. So this ROAS is actionable because it's your 90-day ROAS window, right? So you could also do that calculation on 120 days. I don't like going further than that because then it's very hypothetical at that point. So I won't talk about the 120-day LTV. I'll just talk about the 90-day LTV, which is 3 months. And in 3 months, how many times did your customers buy from your from your store? And if you're doing email marketing properly, and I didn't talk about subscription programs in this video, I will in a future one, but your buy box should have the multi-packs and it should also have the subscription capabilities. So now that this is squared away, this gives you a little bit of a it gives you a little bit of clarity on what numbers to even look at and what kind of have what expectations to have on any partner that you're working with. And I don't know what to kind of keep in mind here. So All right, we're going to go ahead and then jump to the next part. So now you're talking about the ad structure, right? So, your product page is good. It has the multi-packs with the 3 options. You have a product page or a landing page with educational sequences that explains the unique selling propositions of your product. Now we're actually going to talk about meta ads and in the actual framework inside the meta ad account. I don't want to keep it too long, so I'll go ahead and kind of jump right into it. All right, let's see. All right, so you have your meta ad account. And you have your campaign. Let's see if I can duplicate this. You have your ad set. And then you have your ads. Right? So when you look at a meta ad account, this is kind of how it is from scratch, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend the structure you should run at the beginning. You need to map out how many funnels you want to launch with. I'm going to give an example. A supplement brand that sells a vitamin C, it could be speaking to an elderly audience because elderly audiences need to take more vitamin C. It could also be talking to a kids funnel because kids are more susceptible to germs. Those are 2 funnels. So if that's the case, then we need to launch with 2 campaigns. This is important because you need to isolate your structures within Meta. Nowadays, you can't mix it all together. If you do, it'll lead to confusion within the campaign structure. In some scenarios, we even use 2 pixels, but I'm not going to get too kind of deep into that. So you're going to have a kids vitamin C, vitamin C, vitamin C campaign. Let's say in this kids vitamin C campaign, you're obviously reaching the parents, but you're talking about what this product solves for. You have multi-pack bundles. You have an educational landing page, for example, like this, that explains why you should take this, and your conversion rate will then be 1 to 4% if you built it properly. You're then going to have 1 ad set, 1. And then you're going to want to work your way up to 50 creatives inside of 1 ad set. All right, and we're going to go ahead and I usually like to work a funnel at a time, so we're going to go ahead and eliminate the elderly funnel. And that one was just an example of how you scale horizontally. So we're talking about the kids vitamin C campaign, 1 ad set, and you have 50 creatives. Within the 50 creatives, I like to, inside of here, have a structure that's 30% or 33% top of funnel, 33% middle of the funnel, and then you have 33% bottom of the funnel. So what does that actually mean? And I know you have a question right now probably, and that's what targeting are we using? So your landing page and your copy needs to speak to this audience that we're going after, right? In this scenario, it's the parents, right? But it's kind of tailored towards kids and everything of that sort. So you're going to use copy and cues. For example, sports, or whatever that may be, that directly trigger Advantage Plus. It triggers Advantage Plus to understanding who your buyer is. You can also do manual targeting experiments, but I am heavily pushing towards Advantage Plus because of how effective it is. So Advantage Plus, you're going to leave it, you're either going to do your targeting or leave it on broad. In this scenario, let's leave it on broad. We're going to do one ad set, and we're going to do 50 creatives inside of here. My agency kicks off with about 10 to 15 creatives at the beginning, and then we add 5 per week long term. So your creative volume kind of looks like this. And then, some will be winners, right? So what I want you to think about here is inside of your, ad account, you're going to see all your creatives. Some of them will be getting conversions, right? Others will just be getting views. No conversions on other ones, right? So in there, after running this structure, which I would recommend a starting ad spend of about $50 per day. So running $50 per day, you're going to start to find assets that get the conversions. Now, I don't want you to turn off the other ones yet. I want you to work your ad account, your ad set, to having its max placements, which is 50. An ad set can hold 50 at most, right? So I want you to work it all the way to 50. Once you work it all the way to 50 and you let it run for a little bit, you're going to get a campaign level CPA and return on ad spend, right? ROAS. I don't want you to look at the CPA or the ROAS on an asset level, because your entire ad account is resulting in a CPA or a ROAS because of all of the creative. So back in the day, we would kind of grab one of these creatives and run it on its own. I don't recommend doing that anymore, because all of the 50 assets result in your CPA and your ROAS, right? Because a funnel, when you think about a funnel, which is like this, all of your assets are going to be shown strategically to lead to the cheapest acquisition cost. So this is kind of the initial framework that I would start to think about when either talking to a consultant or agency or doing it yourself. My agency offers done-for-you solutions for CPG brands. So we do all of this. We do the creative, we do the media buying, we do the strategy, we do the landing page, and everything else, right? So if you're looking for a second opinion, or you want to talk one-on-one about what your funnel looks like, go ahead and book that call with me, and it goes directly to my calendar, and we can brainstorm how this may potentially mold into your structure. We work with new brands, and we also work with more established, fast-growing brands, right? So when you hear the term horizontal scaling, it's just that this is going to be done again, and it's not going to be the same angle. We're going to go for a new angle, and then once that one works, we're going to go for the next one. So you kind of think about, I kind of like to use the analogy of you're scaling like real estate on the same block. You're not going vertically, because these campaigns, they do have limits. You will top it off where it can't scale any further. That's why you then moved on to angle number 2. Now, lifetime value, email marketing, long-term retention, all that stuff is super important, and I didn't talk about it today. I just wanted to talk about the basics of the first kind of steps, or first, things to think about when considering running your first Meta ads campaign for your CPG brand. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you're looking for additional support, book that call and we can talk about how our agency takes this over for you. Thank you.